Hello, welcome. My name is Georgia Court. I'm the proprietor at bookstore number one in Sarasota and the founder of Poetry Life, and that's the logo that you see here this evening. I think we're going to have a very delightful evening with our guest poets and Joanna Fox and her Dragonfly Cafe students. Just a couple of notes before we get going. As you probably all have noticed, you are all on mute. And the reason is that we expect quite a crowd this evening, and we want to avoid extraneous outside noises like dogs barking and children crying and etc. during the reading. So that's why that's the case. Also, there's a chat function. We are not planning to have a traditional question, answer, and discussion this evening because of the size of the group. However, I would recommend that you put comments if you're interested into chat, because one of the things that I can do is I can save that chat and I can forward it to tonight's readers. So they'll be able to see the messages that you have sent them, if they're not actually watching the chat as they go, which they may be. Uh, I'd also suggest that you put your screens on speaker view, and in that way you'll be seeing the largest image of the person speaking rather than tiny little images of everyone who's in the gallery view. But if you want to see who's here, I'd say go to gallery view and scroll through and see if any of your buddies are here. And you could send a private chat to them, by the way. So in any case, all of our readers tonight, Richard Blanco, Rick Hillis, and Jim Daniels, of course, are published poets and have books. You will find in the chat, at the top of the chat, links to the bookstore, my bookstore, where you can purchase copies of their books. Not all of the books they've ever written are there, but if you search our store, you will find them. We've selected a couple from each to feature here this evening. What's going to happen is that I am going to alternate between our professional poets, if you will, and the students who are working toward becoming professional poets. So I'll give formal introductions in a minute, but just so you have the lay of the land, I'm planning to introduce Richard Blanco first. After he has read, I will introduce Joanna Fox, who will in turn bring up to the screen 4 of her Dragonfly students to read. That will be followed by a reading by Jim Daniels. Then back to Joanna Fox's fabulous Dragonfly Cafe kids. And we'll finish up with a grand finale with Rick Hillis uh, reading us out of the event, so to speak. So welcome to you all, and we'll go ahead and get started. Our first reader is Richard Blanco. Richard was selected by President Obama as the 5th inaugural poet in US history. He's the youngest and the first Latino, immigrant, and gay person to serve in such a role. Born in Madrid to Cuban exile parents and raised in Miami, the negotiation of cultural identity characterizes his collections of poetry, which includes How to Love a Country, City of a Hundred Fires, by the way, which received the Agnes Sterrett Poetry Prize from the University of Pittsburgh Press, Directions to the Beach of the Dead, which was a recipient of the Beyond Margins Award from the PEN American Center, and Looking for the Gulf Motel, recipient of the Patterson Poetry Prize and the Thomas Gunn Award. Richard has also authored the memoirs For All of Us, One Today, An Inaugural Poet's Journey, and The Prince of Los Cocuyos, A Miami Childhood. His inaugural poem, One Today, was published as a children's book in collaboration with renowned illustrator Dav Pilkey. Please welcome Richard Blanco.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Georgia. Thank you for putting this all together. So I'm going to read the inaugural poem, and wanted to sort of just say a few words. First of all, in honor of Dragonfly Cafe, how excited I am that Amanda Gorman is the next inaugural poet. I've got an opportunity to speak with her before and during and after. Just a really dynamite person all around, and she knows Spanish, which is so cool. um, but I just love the example she sets for the power of agency for our youth, as well as her the idea of not just her poetry, but who she is as a person. And so delighted by her place now among us. And also just about the inaugural poem and about occasional poems that we write. I guess the biggest lesson I learned in writing this poem for President Obama's 2013 election was that it's not just about the occasion, right? It's about also how the poet feels about the occasion, and or who the poet is in the occasion. And you saw Amanda refer to herself in her poem, which is very powerful, as I did in this poem, and that was a big lesson I learned. And so, yeah. Uh, so I'm just going to read also a little preface from a memoir that I wrote about the whole inaugural poet um, adventure from the minute I got the phone call to the minute I stepped up on that stage, which sort of gives you a sense of my mind as I'm waiting there to be called up to read the poem. In the moment, I feel America standing as one, putting differences aside and taking a deep collective breath. We pay tribute to something far bigger and more important than any one of us. And I truly feel like one of us, one of we, the people, in the echoes of the president's and others' speeches. I embrace America in a way I never had or thought I could, feeling for the first time that I truly belong to one country. Not an imaginary ideal from TV or a nostalgic Cuba floating in the sea of my parents' memories, but a real, tangible place that is mine, was mine all along. I turn to my mother and whisper, Mama, I guess we're finally Americanos. Senator Schumer introduces me and calls me up to the podium. My mother squeezes my shoulder. I stand more confident than I imagined I would or could be, transfixed by the moment that is no longer about me or my poem or my glory, but about our country. Still, I'm surprised when the president and vice president stand up to greet me and shake my hand on the way to the podium. They both whisper something in my ear that I can't make out, but their gracious gestures speak to me silently, as if saying, Richard, here is your country. This is your story. You are home. I step up to the podium, look out over the crowd, a patchwork quilt of lives, of stories spread across our ground, under our sky, beneath our one sun. I take it all in as I take one deep breath and then another. This is for them. This is for us, for all of us. I think to myself and begin speaking into our wind. Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, America, one today. One sun rose on us today, kindled over our shores, peeking over the Smokies, greeting the faces of the Great Lakes, spreading a simple truth across the Great Plains, then charging over the Rockies. One light, waking up rooftops, under each one a story, told by our silent gestures, moving behind windows. My face, your face, millions of faces in morning's mirrors, each one yawning to life, crescendoing into our day. Pencil yellow school buses, the rhythm of traffic lights, fruit stands, apples, limes, and oranges arrayed like rainbows begging our praise. Silver trucks heavy with oil or paper, bricks or milk, teeming over highways alongside us, on our way to clean tables, read ledgers, or save lives, to teach geometry, or ring up groceries as my mother did for 20 years so I could write this poem for us today. all of us, as vital as the one light we move through. The same light on blackboards with lessons for the day, equations to solve, history to question, or atoms imagined. The I have a dream we keep dreaming, or the impossible vocabulary of sorrow that won't explain, the empty desks of 20 children marked absent today and forever. Many prayers, but one light, breathing color into stained glass windows, life into the faces of bronze statues, warmth onto the steps of our museums and park benches as mothers watch their children slide into the day. One ground, our ground, rooting us to every stalk of corn, every head of wheat sown by sweat and hands, hands gleaning coal or planting windmills in deserts and hilltops that keep us warm, hands digging trenches, hands routing pipes and cables, hands as worn as my father's cutting sugarcane so my brother and I could have books and the dust of our farms and deserts, our cities and plains mingled by one wind, our breath. Breathe, hear it through the day's gorgeous din of honking cabs, buses launching down avenues, the symphony of footsteps and guitars and screeching subways, the unexpected songbird on your clothesline. Hear squeaky playground swings, trains whistling or whispers across cafe tables. Hear the doors we open for each other all day, saying hello, shalom, buongiorno, howdy, namaste, or buenos dias, in the language my mother taught me. In every language, spoken into one wind, carrying our lives without prejudice as these words break from my lips. One sky since the Appalachian and Sierras claimed their majesty, and the Mississippi and Colorado worked their way to the sea. Thank the work of our hands, weaving steel into bridges, finishing one more report for the boss on time, stitching another wound or uniform. The first brushstroke on a portrait, or the last floor on the Freedom Tower jutting into a sky that yields to our resilience. One sky toward which we sometimes lift our eyes, tired from work. Some days guessing at the weather of our lives. Some days giving thanks for love that loves you back. Sometimes praising a mother who knew how to give, or forgiving a father who couldn't give exactly what you wanted. Still, we head home through the gloss of rain or weight of snow or the plum blush of dusk, but always, always home, always under one sky, our sky, and always one moon, like a silent drum tapping on every rooftop and every window of one country, all of us facing the stars and hope, a new constellation, still waiting for us to map it, still waiting for us to name it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. That was beautiful. And we see the silent clapping, I know, because because we are all on mute. I'm sure everybody is applauding and snapping. I see Rick Hillis snapping his fingers. I'd like to introduce now Joanna Fox. Uh, Joanna is a nationally recognized teacher. For those people are coming in from all around the country, so they may not know this. Joanna teaches at Booker Middle School in Sarasota, Florida, and that's where she is now with the 8 students who are going to read tonight. But she's a nationally recognized teacher. And among her many awards are the Penguin Random House Maya Angelou Teacher Award for Poetry, which she was awarded in 2018, the Dean of the College of Education Lifetime Achievement Award from the University of South Florida, that was in 2017, the International River of Words Teacher of the Year in 2014, and the Scholastic National Art and Writing for Outstanding Educator Award 2011. and she's a multi-year winner of Florida Council of Teachers of English Teacher of Writing Award, a very accomplished teacher. And the students under her tutelage, I have come to know over the years, and they do terrific work. So please welcome Joanna Fox.
Thank you, Georgia. And thank you for giving us a platform during these COVID times when I can't get the kids out into the community to share their words. It's nice that we're going to be able to share our words with you all tonight, and I hope you enjoy it. These kids get to stay in our class for 3 years. 6th grade is an exploration of the world of words. 7th grade is an exploration of the world around you. And 8th grade is an exploration of the world within you. So when you leave, you know who you are, you know what you believe in, and you know how to stand on the voice of your words. And for it is words that take us places. And I know my kids are going to go very far. When we decided to do some Amanda Gorman poetry after seeing her, as I know many of you saw at the inauguration, her performance, we decided what makes Amanda Gorman Amanda Gorman. And as we watched her videos and read her poems, we discovered a few things. One of the things we discovered was her passion, her slant rhymes, intelligence, her rhythm, her integrity, her rhythm, a personal connection, and her enunciation. And we put all of those things into their work, as well as some metaphor, her imagery, which is gorgeous, and some alliteration, and the triangulation, the power of 3. So without any more ado, we're going to have Mackenzie Lopatensky start for us tonight. She is an 8th grader. She is a state and regional poetry winner, and poetry served as a guide through the pandemic times of isolation. When she could go nowhere, she went everywhere through reading and writing. Mackenzie Lopatensky.
All the Ages by Mackenzie Lopatensky. I was many things when I was 8. I was what they called a fast burner. I grew without a prominent pace, and my fate was laid out before me in the grade of life that scrapes away at our young brains. We realized that intellect comes after being ignorant. Not only was I living in blissful ignorance, but I was just 8. The bliss didn't last long. My voice was held back. The giggle in my throat was had just as much strength as the woman in the yellow coat. Not as impactful when quiet. The silence means nothing when misrepresented as mild, and my useful nature treated me well, but I was not simply happy, I was just 8. I was made to be okay. With no problems coming my way, I realized I wasn't meant to express my faith. Society raised me to shut my mouth. My life wasn't plain, I was just 8, and the pain that I felt wasn't valid, though minuscule. The measure did not matter. They taught my memories to sit in my brain, scrambled and scattered, in hopes of shutting out my thought. Now that I am old enough to speak for myself, I am not 8, not simple-minded by force, but my intellect is formed by the matters I choose to take into my own hands, so that my thoughts could resonate in the earth and prepare the land for what is going to be my future. But at last I am just 13. The strain in my voice is still ignored. The vision of me is only a reflection of the mission our community portrays, the system that our children are raised in, the very system that we silently praise. My life is not as simple as you may think, for I am just 13. My world is a pipeline with one circle of earth being seen. I'm barely a teenager. How can I have a say in the life adults control? When I take the wheel and hold my hands up to the broken boundaries, they brainwash me to think that I stole my childhood and ripped it to shreds. They say that I am ungrateful for the system I was born into, that my participation is in the way of my personhood. They imagine that my life depends on what every other person could. I did not shred my life at the ripe age of 13, because I am all the ages that I have ever been. I am just 8. I think with innocence. I'm just 5. I mess things up with high exuberance. I am just 10. I show my opposition with intent. I am 2. I cry for small inconveniences. I am just 13. My experience, it may not compare to yours, but my voice is just as prominent when you fondle a timeline you are not a part of.
Thank you, Mackenzie. I want you all to think about all the ages you are. I want you to think about that happy 9-year-old who likes to gamble about in the front yard or who wants to frolic on the beach. Get in touch with one of the earlier people you are. Our next poet is Hannah Williamson. She too is in 8th grade. She is our resident typewriter aficionado. Usually we are out in the community doing our poetry on typewriters for guests in hotels and such. That's not happening this year. And she found that writing is a way to relate to and with people. It is both a common ground and her own place in the world where words take her. Hannah.
In This Place by Hannah Williamson. There is a poem in this place, in the halls covered by footprints and dirt, the sky towering upon filled classrooms. The cup of tea our teacher holds in her hands, there is a poem in this place. A poem in the wind, a poem in the trees, a poem hanging on the park bench on 32nd Stream. A poem to be shared downtown at the baker shop. A poem created by someone out there with a gold heart. There's a poem in this place where the church bells ring, animals cry under their artificial habitats, above a sky of mystery and inspiration. For the people and by the people, there's a poem fused to Mother Nature's creation. There's a poem in this place, in the wind and the trees, in the sky and morning dew, a poem to be shared and cradled, a poem written by the few. And as the world grows old, dark and spacious, with the few remains of this world, there is a poem waiting to be known.
Thank you, Hannah. There is poetry everywhere. You have to recognize it. Perhaps you are the poem. Emily Aldridge, also in 8th grade. Emily expresses herself through poetry in motion, through her dance on the stage, as well as poetry on the page. She often begins her writing with the last line and then works her way back to the beginning. Emily. You got this.
Hear Me as a Voice by Emily Aldridge. Draw me as a grain of sand, just so I can be seen as only insignificant, just so I can be seen as an unnecessary part of the whole. Name me a child, stick a name tag on me, just so I can be dismissed as background noise. But do not forget me. Do not forget my heat, my spark, my flame that burns in oak wood. No, I will not die yet. I will last till morning come. I will leave my warmth to the world until my dancing flames rest. Name me a woman, name me a poet, name me a sister, for I am a sister to all. Hear me as a voice, not a sound. Let me be a leader towards a forever trail of change and onward towards justice.
Thank you, Emily. Love the power in her voice. Love the fact that I get to work with such kids every day. When I say I have the best job ever, believe it to be true. Our next poet, 8th grader, Casey Scalardi. He is our resident tea expert. He concocts interesting, flavorful blends each morning as we drink tea in the cafe. He is fearless as he tries many styles of writing, developing a strong narrative voice and in his fiction and favoring free verse with his poetry. Casey.
The name of this poem is This Country Needs Healing, inspired by Amanda Gorman. This country needs healing. Yes, we need to change for the best. We need time to take a second and breathe. What exactly were we thinking? If in these times, these days, we'll realize how much we spread pain, we could look back and really grasp that this world will never be the same. Time and time again, we made foe instead of friend. We broke instead of trying to mend. We disbelieved, argued, yelled at each other on Twitter, on Facebook, over text. Slowly, our community was diminished. But our work here is not finished. We'll not be broken, stifled, and diminished. This is a new year, a new beginning. And if we can realize that love is what's winning, we can save lives instead of killing. Do you hear me? The words I say are simple. Love, help, be civil, be kind, be noticed. Be noticed for the things you've done well, not for the times you haven't excelled. Be known to be kind and sharing, gracious and caring, loving everyone for who they are. Don't judge, and remember, kindness travels far. Be a leader or the team player. Support your family because they're the ones that always have your back. Treat others how you want to be treated. Stop yelling. Only give your opinion when needed. Not to limit your freedom of speech, but wars have been started over opinions, so remember the effect of its reach. It's simple, don't sweat it. Humans make mistakes, I get it. But the world wasn't built from mistakes. It was built from new ideas and collaboration. That is the basis of our nation. So come with me all, step into the light. For against hate, we shall make our valiant fight. It may be a last stand, the beginning of a dark night, but I am hopeful that it is the first of many victories. A sign will be all right.
Isn't it encouraging to hear such words from those so young? We're in a good place with these kids. It's not over.
Thank you, Joanna. And we'll be back to Joanna for more in a few minutes. But right now, I would like to introduce Jim Daniels. Jim teaches at Carnegie Mellon University, where he is Thomas Stockham Baker University Professor of English. His new book of poems, Gun Shy, will be published by Wayne State University Press in the fall of this year. Other recent books include his short fiction collection, The Perp Walk, and his anthology, RESPECT, The Poetry of Detroit Music, co-edited with M.L. Liebler, both published by Michigan State University Press. Please welcome Jim Daniels. Jim, you'll need to unmute. Jim, you're muted.
Okay. Yeah, it was telling me the host would not let me unmute, but you can hear me now? No. Oh, you can hear me now. Okay, thank you. So I thought, thanks for inviting me to be part of this, and I'm really enjoying these wonderful student poets. I thought I would read a poem that I wrote after September 11th. The university president invited the families. Carnegie Mellon, we get a lot of students from New York and New Jersey, so a number of our alums, unfortunately, and tragically, were killed in the attacks. And our university president, Jared Cohen, we had become friends over the years, and he invited them back, the families of these alumni victims, back to campus for a ceremony during homecoming of that year, which is really, pretty close to the event itself. And he planted a memorial tree on campus, and he asked me to try and write something for him to read at this event. No pressure, right? Occasional verse is really tough. I mean, just hearing Richard's poem again just reminds me what a beautiful job he did, and Amanda Gorman this year as well. But I was clearly overwhelmed by grief, as so many of us were, and it was really hard to put this together. But I felt like I had to do it for these families that were there. I only wish I could have done better, but here's my poem. It's called Us Now. We move through heavy days, wading through the river of routine, carrying on because we must. While evil shrinks to its dense core, we grow into a family of open hands. In every room, we search for one to clasp, one to kiss, the embrace of us. We mourn, we bow our heads to find our real voices, to refuse the columns of names and make each name its own list of one. Now we look over the flat lawns carefully tended, smooth as dreams in which we survive one more day. We remember the earth has been broken. We plant a tree. Here it rises without a sound. Here we stop and listen. So I'll just tell you a little bit about the history of this because it's been kind of interesting. So they gave each family a picture of the poem framed, superimposed over this tree. The tree is really doing well. And then they put the poem on a plaque in front of the tree. And there are certain people that send me notes every year because they're reminded. The director of physical plant on our campus here was in the Pentagon on September 11th. And so he has a very personal connection for people he lost in the attacks. And he goes by that every year. And the lettering on the plaque faded, and they're redoing the plaque entirely. And he is giving me the old plaque redone with the poem. But you know, these joyous events and these sad events just stay with us. And I think as poets, we do the best we can to speak for the celebration or the loss, depending. But thanks for having me tonight.
Well, thank you, Jim. Beautiful, beautiful poem. Well, we're going to bring Joanna Fox back because she has more students who will be reading us their wonderful poems. Joanna.
Okay, thank you, Georgia. Tech guru on that muting for me. So we have 4 more poets for you this evening. And our next poet is Kayla Lancelotti. She is in 6th grade and she writes reflecting her mood as a release, be it happy, sad, or that ennui type of boredom 12 and 13-year-olds get in the summer, especially a summer like we just had. What can I do next? Well, you can always write because you always have a piece of paper, or at least the thought, and it's thoughts that take us places. So Kayla develops her voice not only through writing, but also through singing. She's going to share her poem for you now. Kayla?
The Dreamers, the Leaders, and You by Kayla Ann. The way people treat others, including themselves, cannot be apologized for from the highest of heights because even then, the scars are still visible. Even in the hardest of times, we know to stand up for this country. We will stand tall, we will not take for granted, and we will protect this country, our country, before it rises in flames so tall that this earth, the earth that we need, the earth that we live on, will crumble. We would only be that of forgotten ashes, and worst of all, we would not be a family anymore. We have always tried to shape the earth, break the earth, scrape through the skin of the earth while trying to escape out of its harsh grasp. and people wonder why the world is harsh. But I know in my heart that we will rise like we did 100 years ago, and we will keep marching until someone gets the memo that we won't stop. We are all one, and everyone has a part in making this world an amazing place. We need to stand up for the earth and for each other. Try standing in a protest and understanding the feeling of teamwork and the feeling of pain. The pain stands in all, not one. 1 shot and we fall. 2 shots and we scream. 3 shots and we almost never try again. Yet we stand because we know that together we can accomplish anything. So the dreamers, the leaders, the makers, the wishers, the givers, the heartbreakers, yes, everyone. Take a chance, take a stand, and start living like you should. Start living like we all should.
Thank you, Kayla. Are you guys ready to go? I mean, she's got us all revved up. Thank you, Kayla. Avery Cole is in 6th grade. He is our resident tech guru. He's always at the computer or the active board when I have a stumble, which is daily. But he's kind and he's always warm-hearted. He enjoys building, cooking, and drawing, which directly connects to his writing. He likes to build new worlds and stories and cook up stories and poetry. Avery Cole.
The Future is Yet to Come by Avery Cole. The future is yet to come. There will be a time for our nation to grow. That day is today. I feel the suffering of millions that tears our souls, that stops our day. We still face racial injustice. Our society was left in pieces for one man and one woman to clean up. But it is not up to them alone to stop the violence and the hatred. It is up and fix our country. It's up to you and me, up to all of us, to make the right choice. I look up at the wall to see the poets before me, and I see the poets yet to come. It is up to us to make a better future for everyone, whether you are rich or poor, black or white, Democrat or Republican. We can all come together and grow as a nation. There is never time for petty revenge. There is only time for freedom, equality, and forgiveness. That time is now.
The time is now. What are you going to do with the time you have? Time is the great equalizer, you know. We all get the same amount of time every single day, but we don't all use our time wisely. Really now, what are you going to do with your time? I'll tell you what, Maddie Smith, our 7th grade next poet, Maddie finds herself in her writing with an emphasis on poetry. Writing works, you guys, when other ways don't. Pick up your pencil, put it to the paper, listen to your heart, and write that poem that you are. Maddie Smith. Go slow.
The Vines by Madison Smith. Walking past, trying to push through, but the vines hang covering the entrance. You push through to the surface, walking into this world words you've never seen before. A world that would have taken you years to find if you had given up. Yes, the vines were strong, but you were stronger. The flowers around you bloom. Those are the good choices and the bad. The good buds and the bad buds. As a child, you pick the good buds. As you get older, you sometimes pick the bad ones. You may get into certain things and stuck in different places, but you will always make it out alive. Bruised and broken? Yes, but you will always heal. Keep that in the back of your mind for whenever you get stuck. You always make it out alive.
Thank you. You always make it out. We have one more poet for you this evening. And Marit Gumbrium just came to Sarasota from Massachusetts. We are so glad she found her way down that highway to Sarasota. She started writing poetry when she was 7 and is developing her skills in singing and drawing as well as in writing. Marit.
We live in a world by Mark Gubrium. We live in a world where we have tried to imagine a perfect world because we have tried to speak up, reach up, preach up to a silent room alone. We live in a world where women and girls check under the car before getting in, have to walk with one headphone out, and we ask the victim, what were you wearing? We live in a world where our mind is the limit just because we refuse to listen. We live in a world where birds do not fly, they are on the ground with their wings clipped. They do not sing because they have choked on the smoke that is our nation. Let there be a break in the clouds to reveal the golden rays of hope. We live in that world.
Thank you. Golden rays of hope. And there is hope, especially if you find your way to the Dragonfly Cafe. Wait a minute. There we go. If you find your way to the Dragonfly Cafe, when we have no more restrictions on visitors to our campus, I invite all of you, each one of you, to find your way to the Dragonfly Cafe. We'll give you a cup of tea. Casey will blend it specially for you. We'll give you a freshly sharpened pencil, black Ticonderoga, or maybe a black wing. What's a black warrior? And a steno pad, so that you can write your own poems. We also have the typewriters here. Technology, no. You're coming with just yourself, your ideas, and the possibilities that you harbor within you. It's time to take to the winds of words and write today. Thank you again, Georgia, for inviting us to participate. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Joanna, and thank you, students. You all did a terrific job. Next, I would like to introduce Rick Hillis. Rick Hillis is the author of Brother Salvage, which was the winner of the 2005 Agnes Lynch Starrett Prize, and was also named the 2006 Poetry Book of the Year by Forward Magazine. He's also the author of A Map of the Lost World, which was listed as a top pick on Library Journal's website in 2012. Among his honors are a Whiting Writers Award, the Amy Lowell Poetry Traveling Scholarship, and fellowships from the Camargo Foundation in Cassis, France, the Stegner Program at Stanford, the Institute for Creative Writing at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and the Fulbright Program. His poems, translations, and essays have appeared widely, including in Boston Review, Harper's, Paris Review, and Poetry. Rick is Associate Professor of English at Vanderbilt University, where he teaches all levels of poetry courses, including in the MFA program in creative writing. Please welcome Rick Hillis.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Georgia. I can imagine applause. You know, at least the imagination is very much with us, even if we can't always hear what we want to hear. But I just want to say, this has been such a moving evening for me. I just have loved not only getting to hear poets that I know and love already, like Richard Blanco and Jim Daniels reading amazing poems, but to hear all of the poets who are sort of blessedly in the amazing attention, this luminous presence of Joanna Fox, the Dragonfly poets, the Dragonfly Cafe poets. I'm so impressed with all that you've done this evening, and it's no small thing what you're doing, cultivating your sensibilities at this time in your lives. And I hope to live long enough to see what you do as writers and just as people. I'll be eager to find out. You know, I guess I wanted to say too, like, what a lovely impulse for a gathering to, you know, to honor, you know, Amanda Gorman, and also thinking about influence. I guess is maybe partly where I'm going with this is, I think that with influence, it's so wonderful to be under, like, to be bewitched by one author, one poet, but also I hope, you know, especially for all of the Dragonfly Cafe poets, I'd like to encourage you to make influence a feast, you know, make it something that, you know, allow yourself to read widely, things that you didn't even think that you would be interested in. Just I guess this goes back to Henry James, like read everything, you know, and allow yourself to be influenced by it. Again, this is a very humbling thing to be with you all today in this way. And the occasion for the poem that I'm going to read, it's really remarkable thinking about Richard Blanco, you know, reading, being tapped on the shoulder by the great President Barack Obama, and in Jim Daniels' case, writing this gorgeous tribute to 9/11. I figured since I'm coming last that I'd try to write, you know, to read a shorter poem, but hopefully one that is not slight for being shorter. But also this poem, like many poems, you know, are occasioned by all kinds of things, but this one was occasioned by the loss of a friend, the death just back in December on the 28th of 2020. This wonderful poet, maybe this picture will come through. The poet Jean Valentine, such a lovely, lovely spirit. And she was just like that, you know, when she would look at you, at least every time I encountered her, it was just like an infusion of sunlight, like getting to have time in Florida. But I guess maybe I'd say too that this poem that I thought of as an elegy for her, I thought part of the tribute would be in, you know, sitting down with her books, reading her again, and trying to sort of channel some of her energies, even in a tribute for her. But as I'm looking at the back of this book and getting ready for this evening, I saw just a beautiful statement on her poetry by a fellow poet, I should say a contemporary of Jean's, the poet that, you know, just about all of you will have heard of, Adrienne Rich. They were dear friends, I know. And this is what she says about a Jean Valentine poem. Looking into a Jean Valentine poem is like looking into a lake. You can see your own outline and the shapes of the upper world reflected among rocks, underwater life, glint of lost bottles, drifted leaves. The known and familiar become one with the mysterious and half wild, at the place where consciousness and the subliminal meet. This is a poetry of the highest order because it lets us into spaces and meanings we couldn't approach in any other way. In all her work, most astonishingly, Jean Valentine offers us the danger and depth of the ordinary, and we shiver with recognition and relief. Okay, so here is my poem for Jean Valentine. One thing that you might enjoy knowing about Jean is that she adored Emily Dickinson. In fact, for those of you who would like to pick up some Emily Dickinson, I guess I'm thinking now again of the Dragonfly Cafe Poets. There's a wonderful little volume that Shambhala Press put out a few years ago that Brenda Hillman, who's also a wonderful poet, edited. And Jean kept this in her purse. I saw her, you know, take it out of her purse time and again. It's a wonderful thing to keep, and you can put it in a pocket. It's so small. But this poem has a line of Emily Dickinson's. In fact, it was a line that Jean had written on a note, on a bookmark, and had given it to me when I just needed a bookmark for a book, you know. And so this is the line from Emily Dickinson: "The sailor cannot see the north, but knows the needle can." And this is called A Late Valentine for Jean Valentine. You set the needle down on a page, and the whole room trembled. The fireflies flashed in the periphery. The air singed as if from distant fires, delivering the news, the shock of recognition, new depths of love that we might come to know. That music that so enthralled you, you held it close enough for us to hear. Now we have the shells, the casings, emptied and scattered, strewn along beachfronts at the end of a terrible year. To hear you now, we must hold the whole world up to our ears. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you. Thank you, Georgia.
Thank you to all of you. I think for my part, this has been a wonderful evening of poetry. Every poet who read was terrific. And I can only imagine that the 8 Dragonfly Cafe poets are going to be among your ranks, Richard and Jim and Rick, before we know it. Really, a really talented group led by Joanna Fox. And thank you, Joanna. So with that, we will call it an evening. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate all of your participation. The readers, the attendees. It has been a delight for me, and I hope it has been for you. Good night.